Before I continue, I want to say right now, Ezra Levant of Rebel News is a hero of Western civilization because he was the only person in the media who had the manifesto and published it. Everyone else in the media lied about it. Now, let's get into the actual manifesto because I spent the time today reading the manifesto and analyzing it. And first of all, it's incredibly disturbing. And secondly, I actually want to get into what's going on here because, first of all, the media didn't just lie, they misled you to believe something that is so untrue. It would effectively be the reason they wanted you to believe this was to lay the predicate for whatever legislative overhaul the government wants to do, because of course the media is an element of the government at this point in Canada. First of all, the shooter is deeply disturbing. He's a deeply disturbed man. So firstly, the fact that he hated women was true for sure, but what they didn't neglected to tell you is that he also really hated men. He was an incredibly envious individual who truly hated humanity and had this very binary version of the world because he was a communist. He was a radical communist. He was a revolutionary communist, actually. And in fact, the last bit of this manifesto is instructing people how to commit a revolutionary takeover of society, specifically of what he calls high capitalist society, because high capitalist society he refers to as what is today's society in the West. And yes, he also hates Western civilization. He makes that very clear. In the preamble of his manifesto, he explicitly says, if this gets to a non-Western country, do not get violent. Do not let it get violent because he doesn't want to destabilize a non-Western country. He wants to destabilize and destroy the West. That was his goal because he sees the West as fundamentally evil, and he also sees capitalism as fundamentally evil, which the two are completely connected for him. He decries classical liberalism, as we all thought. I'm going to quote this from him. Quote, capitalism itself is deeply interconnected with the philosophy of liberalism, which in earlier times was almost a synonymous term for capitalism. He's making the case. He's not making any bones about this. He makes it very clear. Now, in his hatred of capitalism, he also hates, of course, what he calls the bourgeois, because he fully embraces grievance politics. And how does he do that? Well, he believes that he is in a position, he's in the position that he's in, involuntary celibate, who no one liked and no one wanted to talk to because he didn't know how to communicate with other people, and he had social issues like many people do. Instead of, wanting to improve himself, he found most comfort in being able to blame other people. And who's he blaming? Obviously, whom all communists blame, capitalists, or as he calls them, the bourgeois, or an elite class of the selected few. He uses a bunch of different terms. He also, yes, sure, the media say that he hates women, but he also hates all humanity. He literally says, quote, humans are basically animals. He literally said that humans are basically animals. That's how he views humans. He does not view himself to be part of humanity. And of course that extends into his fundamental hatred of Western civilization. And he throughout the entire manifesto, it's so clear he is deeply resentful. He's deeply resentful and he's deeply envious. And that is where grievance politics really seeps in. That is where the products of foreign interference through stoking divisions, through promoting grievance politics and grievance narratives, through left-wing ideologues, also, again, promoting this idea that if you are unsuccessful, if there's something wrong in your life, if you have any hardships, it's because of a shadowy cabal of elites. And it's mostly referred to here as the quote-unquote bourgeois. I think the most disturbing part at the very end is his vision. And that is unfortunately something that is commonplace. Like, for example, in the last, let's say, 20 pages of his manifesto, he talks about what his vision of the world would be and how he would overthrow the system. And how he would do that, well, I wonder where he got this from. Let's hear it. His idea is to promote different types of propaganda, as he says. I don't. He says he literally uses the term propaganda. And in order to promote this type of propaganda, he wants to, you need to put signs and you need to put posters everywhere. How do you do that? Well, we can't trust the authorities because I'm sure there's going to be authorities or even citizens who are corrupted by the capitalist elites. And again, he says this. I'm not saying this, he did. And how do you do that? Well, you got to make sure you're masked up. You got to mask up. Mask up, you're on camera. You remember that? Yeah, that was a sign that the Concordia Student Union, put up on the boards throughout Concordia University. Things like that are commonplace among college campuses, which is insane. But unfortunately, it's indicative of why you see things like this happening while someone is literally promoting a communist revolution against those who he does not like, against those who he feels as though are dispossessed. He feels personally victimized him and personally put him in this situation. First of all, this is evil. We need to call it out. Secondly, the media for not covering it right away and lying about it, specifically CBC, CTV, City News. I can go on for a bit more, but those are the names off the top of my head. They're evil, Global News. They're evil because they did not cover this. They said he was an anti-feminist, which is spreading this idea that he was something he was not. Maybe he doesn't like feminism, whatever, but that was the most insignificant part of the entire manifesto. What is significant is that he has this belief system, which is very prevalent, especially on the left, that if you are unsuccessful, if you are in a bad place in life, it is not your fault, it is someone else's fault. And we then can blame that other person. We can blame the more powerful person. We can blame the more successful person, the more wealthy person. That's why people are yelling about Elon Musk becoming a trillionaire. That is the same idea. That is the same set of beliefs, and it's evil, and we need to call it out. And no, the media are not going to, they should not be getting off the hook for this miscovering, for this misinformation campaign they attempted to spread. The final message is you are in control of your destiny. You're in control. You live in those who are privileged enough to live in Western civilization, specifically those who are privileged enough to live in America, the greatest country in all of Western civilization. You are in control of your future. You can control where you go. You can control how successful you become. So take that control. Don't blame anyone else other than yourself. Take responsibility for your own decisions. Because if you don't, we see how dangerous and how violent it gets.